Doo-be-doo-be-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doo-be-doo-be-doo. Doo-be-doo-be-doo. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
Hello. Happy Friday, guys. Welcome everyone who's watching on YouTube, Twitter, and Rockfin, and welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Roundtable and Fridays for the Sabby Show. Although I wasn't there tonight because I had a last minute meeting. Ugh. But welcome everyone. So guys, Justin is here with me tonight. He actually has worked with Jesse Ventura and the Green Party, and I have some questions for him. So I'm actually going to get started with that story, but let me go ahead and share my thumbnail really quick so you can see what we're going to be discussing tonight. So tonight I'm talking about Seize the House issues. What happened with this event, ladies and gentlemen, and why were there so many people upset? I'm going to get into that. I'm also going to talk about Nomiki Konst's wokeism. So there was an appearance on Fox News that I think is important for everyone to hear. And we're going to talk about Jesse Ventura and the Green Party. So let's go ahead and get started with the Jesse story. So Justin, the first question I have for you, and a lot of people have brought this up. You have Jesse Ventura, you have Howie Hawkins. Why? Why did the Green Party go with Howie Hawkins instead of Jesse Ventura?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Sabby. Really big fan of the show. And, so I'll start off with, let's talk about, you said we have Howie Hawkins and we had Jesse Ventura. But really, there were about 8 or 9 other candidates that were, prospective candidates for the race, right, for president. And, really, the second person behind Howie Hawkins in the race was a person named Dario Hunter from school board in Ohio, right? You remember, I see you nodding. So Dario was great, and we had Dennis Lambert. We had some very colorful characters, Sednam Moya Wazisa, Christian Curry, and so it wasn't just Jesse and Howie, and it wasn't just that choice. First of all, so maybe a little bit of background. So I joined the Greens in 2017, and very quickly got involved, got into the presidential campaign support committee at the national level with the Greens. I'm here in Maine too, where we have a strong Green Party. So when I got really disenfranchised with Dems in 2016, and I had been a delegate for Bernie Sanders, my natural place to go was the Green Party here in Maine. And so the Presidential Campaign Support Committee for the Green Party of the United States, its role is to help try to find candidates, people that are interested in running. And in 2018, I also was elected to be one of the co-chairs for the Green Party of the United States. And around that time, it was 2018, 2019, end of 2018, 2019, started seeing like there was the TMZ clip with Jesse saying that, oh, the Greenies had been talking with him and, I might run with them. It was so exciting for me. I've always been of the opinion that, well, we need to find a candidate that's strong with our values, but also, has that, level of notoriety, right? And he also has the experience. He's a former governor of Minnesota. Would have been a knockout candidate for us. So the first, basically what I did then is, again, we're trying to recruit candidates with the Presidential Campaign Support Committee. I was very interested to see if Jesse would run with us, actually. So the first part was trying to figure out how to reach him. I figured out a way to get his number or his email. He reached out to me after I expressed, I'm like, are you really interested, Jesse? We then got involved in some email correspondence, and I would pause here, and I know I haven't answered your question yet, Sabby. Is this okay to keep going along the lines and just kind of paint the big picture and then try to answer the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we are in email correspondence, and he's hinting that he's willing to do it. He wants to wait until the last minute. He doesn't want to announce early. He's vacationing in Mexico. Basically, he does that every winter. And I was, at first the conversations, I was like, I don't know if he's really going to do it. And so through 2019, I was like, kind of, hard to say if he's really interested in doing this thing. And then in late 2019, a good friend of mine with the Green Party, a gentleman named Aaron Fox, who has done a lot of work with campaigning and candidates, with the coordinated campaign committee in the Greens. He visited Maine to do some candidate training. We had Lisa Savage, who was running for United States Senate here in Maine, where we have ranked choice voting. So that was a really exciting race. Aaron came by, and Hillary Kane, who's also with the committee. We did some great candidate training. And I was talking with Aaron about Jesse, and I was like, hey, I've got his number, but I don't know if he's going to do it. I've talked with him. We've had emails. And I was like, why don't you try reach it? So, I let Aaron talk with him, and it just, we kept working at it, and Aaron made a pitch to him. And, I've got the document still where it's, why he needed to do it and kind of laying out a timeline. Again, Jesse he didn't really want to run in our primaries though. And that's really one of the biggest problems with why we couldn't get him the nomination, but Jesse wanted to do it his way. And Aaron and I were like, well, he's at least kind of interested. Maybe he'll do it. Maybe he'll actually do it. So we were like, okay, well, we have to work with him and what he wants to do, even though we have these rules on how candidates apply to be a presidential candidate with the Green Party and what they have to do. And I'm glad to talk through some of those like nuances and stuff like that. In the end, in like April of 2020 now, there's already been primaries in the Green Party in many different states. And, Jesse was very close, and he's like, okay, what do I need to do? And we're like, you need to first submit a letter of interest to the Green Party saying you're interested in it. And basically, we got the okay from Jesse to do this. Aaron drafted it. We put it to the Presidential Campaign Support Committee. And technically, he had met the first hurdle in becoming a candidate for the Green Party of the United States, which is to say, I'm interested. At that point, there's a number of other things that they need to raise. The candidates need to raise a certain amount of money from many different states to show that they can fundraise. They have to get a number of signatures from Green Party members around the many different states. And this is just to be a recognized candidate that, it's like, hey, the Green Party is going to make sure you get on all these state ballots and everything like that. So Jesse put out a tweet on April 27th, I think it was, saying that, all right, I kind of had it queued up here. Let's see if I can find it here. But basically, it was to say that, I'm gonna, put my toes in the water, and I've submitted a letter of interest. Doesn't mean I'm running. So we did get that from Jesse, and it was very well received. And I believe he polled at like 18% in a Newsweek poll against Biden and Trump.
Yep, I remember that.
So it was that was our first big step into like, can we get him to actually run now? So once he did that tweet, and then it was like Green Party was all buzzing, and it was like we were kind of hyping it up and trying to build the interest. There were a couple of logistics though. Jesse wasn't quite with the Green Party yet. He wasn't a registered Green in Minnesota. So myself and Aaron Fox, who lived in Michigan at the time, he drove over to Minnesota to go meet with the governor, and Traren Cruz, who's one of the co-chairs of the Green, was one of the co-chairs of the Green Party in the United States at that time. And also he was a co-chair in Minnesota. They met with Jesse. They got him to register as a Green, and to basically welcome him into the party. So I've kind of laid out a lot of details as to how we started interacting with him. And so now, again, you gave me the choice. Like, okay, you could have Howie Hawkins or Jesse Ventura. And there's one other important thing I failed to mention too, is in order to run for president, you have to file with the FEC. And that was another piece that, I mentioned my friend Aaron Fox. The reason why I got him involved was he was the only person I knew within the Green Party that could actually handle managing a presidential campaign like Jesse's, which was done under very unusual circumstances, again, getting very late into the race, knowing we had to meet some certain hurdles and get on the ballots of the remaining states and win a lot of delegates. Aaron, in this trip to Minnesota, also brought the FEC Form 1 for Jesse to sign, right? So again, if he wanted to be a candidate, he had to sign that, and he had to send that into the FEC. So again, we think about it as a choice between Howie Hawkins and Jesse Ventura. Now, if you look at the Wikipedia, you'll see that Jesse is there, but he's listed as not a candidate. Mm-hmm. He never actually filed with the FEC. I can't say whether or not he actually signed any papers that day. So Jesse was also trying to figure out himself if he really wanted to do this. And he was concerned about his job.
Right.
He had some healthcare concerns for his family. And these are a lot of the rumors that were out there that were definitely true. Right. He was threatened with his job. They're like, basically he came to me and Aaron and saying, look, guys, they threatened to fire me. I can't afford to lose my job. And
wait, they threatened to fire him if he were to run for president?
Yes, absolutely.
Was it because he was thinking about running for president, or because he was thinking about running for president as a Green?
Just running for president. He had a show on Russia Today, right? RT America. Mm-hmm. So having a political show, yeah, and a Green Party, potentially a Green Party candidate. So I don't think it was necessarily being a Green Party candidate, but it was the fact that he was going to run for president. And they were like, We won't be able to touch you. Also, Jesse wasn't the only person from RT that tried to run for office and was told that they would be fired if they did. That was the other person is Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges.
Wait, whoa.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Chris Hedges was seriously interested in running for Congress in New Jersey in 2020.
I had no idea. I did not know that.
Chris Hedges has been a longtime Green Party member and, was very interested in running for House. Again, it was the same kind of deal. It's like, look, you've got this contract with us. We really can't afford to because they would also be under scrutiny of a lot of penalties from the FEC and the FCC. So it was like, basically Russia Today. And I wasn't involved in the conversations that they had with Jesse or Chris Hedges, but, they made it very clear. It's like, you either, have this show or, you're going to have to step down, if you really want to run for office. So that was, it was an ultimatum, right? But it was a very serious choice for Jesse and for Chris. So yeah, it's unfortunate because those are exactly the kind of people we need as running as Greens, and it's another person, I believe he actually ran as a Green a number of years ago that people don't realize, Professor Wolf, Dr. Richard Wolf, right? Yeah, he is a longtime Green Party member also. I think he did actually run as a Green. I can't remember for what office, but that was a long time ago. But those are the people I'd like to see running with us, and so Jesse's confronted with this choice. It's like, do I, and he knew it was so late in the game, it would be very hard to get the delegates in a traditional way to win, right? And he didn't want to get in the race and lose, but he didn't want to get involved in the race until the very end. He also, he did say to us, he's like, why didn't you just give me the nomination? And a lot of people said, why don't you just give Jesse the nomination? He should be the candidate. I mean,
right.
It makes, yeah. I mean, if I could do that, I would have. But the thing is, we're very democratically not the Democratic Party. We're grassroots democracy, and we had a primary process, right? Now, it's interesting that a lot of people criticize the Green Party for not giving Jesse the nomination, right? He was interested. He gave the tweet. He decided at one point, like early May, that he was like, I'm not going to do it. I can't afford it. I can't lose my job. So this is pretty much out there that it was his wife, Terry,
right,
who was, had some medical concerns, and I don't want to get into that, it's
right.
But she had testing coming up towards the end of June, and that's like right before the presidential nominating convention. And Jesse's, I've had some conversations with him where it's like I could just like his heart wasn't in it, and I was like, sure, Jesse, and he's like, can't do it, and it's like, because he's like, I don't know what the results of the tests are going to be,
right.
And so that was another thing on his mind. But it's like, so he's like, he's telling us like, yes, I'm interested, but no, and I can't afford to lose the job, and we have these health concerns. And he, even when he's like, no, I'm not going to do it, Aaron went to Minnesota again, and they had a press conference where Jesse actually sat down and said, look, I'm not going to run. I was interested, but I can't really do it at this time. But if the Green Party wanted to, he's like, but if they really made me be their candidate, I would say I would have to think about it. And, maybe I'd be their candidate. But that really that was like saying, well, if you give me the nomination, I'll probably run, I might run. So the reason why I kind of talk about this too, the primary process is, I was a delegate for Bernie Sanders in 2016. And the reason why I left the Democratic Party is it was a rigged primary, right? We walked out en masse, right, to the press tents when they coronated Hillary. And as much as you'd like to say, why didn't the Green Party just give him the nomination? At the same time, there is a delegate selection process for states. Jesse was a write-in candidate in a number of states, and he was on the ballot, I think, in 1 or 2 states, even though he was an official candidate, prospective candidate with the Green Party. But there were enough states with interest, and we were behind the scenes. We were still working and trying to drum up interest and get people to do write-in votes for Jesse. He ended up getting 7 delegates, which is not nothing.
Which I just have to say, Kamala Harris couldn't get 1.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Jesse had that earned him floor time at the convention if he wanted it. He could have made a speech at the convention. When we asked him if he wanted to do that, and he declined, but again, he was going through a lot, right, with the procedures for his wife, and so ultimately, we talk about a choice between Howie and Jesse, and if you were upset about the DNC giving the nomination to Hillary Clinton, and in fact, the Democratic Party, the DNC fraud lawsuit, where they were told that they could pick their candidate in the back room, in a smoke-filled back room. If you were upset about that, then how, on the other hand, could you say that the Green Party should ignore their primary and give the nomination to Jesse?
But wasn't Jesse Ventura on the ballot in Arizona? Excuse me, not Arizona, Alaska?
Alaska. He was. Yes. Now, so that leads to a whole other thing. So the Green Party is decentralized in many ways, where our states are able to like have a little bit of autonomy, and that's true in the Democratic Party too, where you have different state party committees, and they figure out how they're doing their primaries or their primary elections and nominating their delegates, right? And they have to have a process and a plan that they share with the national committee. Same kind of thing happens in the Green Party, right? And in Alaska, I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name there now. But Rob, I think it was, it seems like ages ago. But we had the state party chair there. Was really a Jesse Ventura fan. He tried to actually, and this is the other thing, we had a lot of states that actually tried to get Jesse to attend these candidate forums, and Jesse's like, I can't do it. He's like, I'm not going to show up there. I'm not really running. I'm not going to sign and do the official filing with the FEC. But
wait a minute, Justin.
Sure.
Do you really consider? Because I think back at this a lot. Do you really think that Howie Hawkins was a viable candidate?
No, absolutely not.
I think that was a terrible candidate. I'm just being honest.
Absolutely.
I think with third parties, I think you need someone that has large name recognition. Someone
Absolutely.
like Cornel West, someone like you said before, like Chris Hedges, like someone that a lot of people know. And I just feel like out of all the people, why in the world like Howie Hawkins? To me, it's frustrating.
Yeah, well, it was frustrating to me too. I mean, I like Howie personally. He's a decent guy. He's very like for the working class, and he's got strong socialist roots. at the same time, that doesn't make him a good candidate. I mean, he's run for governor of New York so many times, like, at least 3 or 4 times. So he knows campaigning, right? But I don't want to speak too ill of Howie. How about that? I disagreed with him as being our nominee. I was a fan of Dario Hunter, right? And at the same time, while I was doing a lot of this stuff behind the scenes to try to get Jesse to get into the race, I was on the presidential campaign support committee, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Greens out there that are going to be very upset about this interview. Knowing that I was a co-chair, I was a liaison to the presidential campaign support committee, but part of our thing was candidate outreach and trying to get candidates in. And I was trying to recruit Jesse because he said he was interested, and I thought that would be a great candidate for our party. So was Howie a viable candidate? Was he a candidate that could really do good things for the party? And the answer is no. I mean, Jill, did so much better in 2016. There definitely was a dividing line in the Green Party where, and I'm trying to center my hand here, there was a lot of people for Hawkins, but, there's also like the Jill Stein side of the party. There were a lot of people that were interested in Jesse, and had Jesse actually filed with the FEC, even that, not even going through all the hoops of being an officially recognized candidate with the Green Party, presidential candidate, he could have gotten enough delegates, just by, it's like there were enough people that said, well, geez, if Jesse actually was a candidate, I would probably, be willing to vote for him and become a delegate for him, because he could actually do well in a presidential election. And, the threshold to get on the debate stage, the presidential debates, is 15%. So in the polls.
Right. Let me tell you what, Justin, let me tell you, I'm sorry. Let me tell you what I think. I think that because Jesse was polling at 18%, and I know there's paperwork that needs to be filed as well, but I think that considering the climate of this country at that time, when you had Trump and so many people just wanted him out, not so many people wanted Joe Biden. A lot of people just wanted Trump out. Like that was the sentiment that I saw. I think that the reason why Jesse wasn't the nominee is because it would disrupt that. Is because there was a chance that if he were the nominee and he was already polling at 18%, that could pull people away from Joe Biden and that Trump could win again. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it was Jesse didn't want to do it really. And, again, what you're saying is that we should have, are you saying there was hesitancy on the Green Party's behalf that, because we were afraid of upsetting things? Or are you saying that, because, ultimately what it comes down to is, we couldn't suspend our primary process in the end, just again, do you think it would have been right, or do you think it was right of the Democratic Party, because that's what they did, is they gave the nomination to Hillary in 2016. I believe it was rigged in a number of states. And
but people are also saying that the Green Party primary was rigged too. That's the thing. Okay. So let me tell you what I've noticed from this. It seems like to me, and I'm 100% pro third party, by the way. Yeah, I'm not voting Democrat again. But it just seems like to me, the Greens don't want to win. And that is the frustration that I have. Where is the marketing? Where's the communications? Where are the ads? Where's the promotion? A lot of people I talked to didn't even know that Howie Hawkins was running. They didn't know there was a Green Party person running, right? So I feel like it seems like to me, they don't really want to win. And I have to ask that question, why are I think Jill Stein was an amazing candidate. I thought that Jill Stein was a better candidate than Hillary Clinton. But I think after that, when I'm looking at someone like Howie Hawkins, how do we go from Dr. Jill Stein to Howie Hawkins. And I just know they knew he was not a viable candidate. So it just seemed like to me, they didn't want to disrupt the flow that was there because they didn't want to take the chance that he would pull votes away from Biden and Trump would win again.
So again, I mean, ultimately, and I can understand how we ended up with Howie, because we didn't have a strong enough candidate to take him on. Dario was not strong enough. And it's unfortunate because I thought Dario was great. And I thought Dario would have been a much better presidential candidate for us. Not necessarily more viable, right? I mean, you got to have campaign structure in all these different states. And Howie at least had that, right? He had a lot of Greens that were very interested in setting up these campaign structures. And Jesse, we could have, if he'd actually taken the step to be a candidate and said, you know what? I'm going to give up my job on RT. I'm going to take Cobra Healthcare. And we were working through all these things that we could make it work for Jesse. But Jesse threw up roadblocks. And then ultimately it was like, we can take care of your healthcare. We can, you can write these books. You can do X, Y, and Z. You could probably try to set it up so that you could get your job back after you run if you don't win. But he ultimately, I remember distinctly a phone call where it was like, I just can't do it. It's like, I don't know what the results of this procedure are going to be. And I at that point, I knew his heart wasn't in it. And believe me, there were a lot of people working to get him write-in votes for delegates. There was actually a wholly separate group from the Green Party that was like really pushing for Jesse. And it got really complicated and a lot of tension there internally with that. So we didn't get as many delegates probably as we could have, even as a write-in candidate. So, I mean, there was a lot of interest in getting Jesse the nomination inside the Green Party. And from outside of the Green Party, trying to help him get these delegates. People that hadn't been involved in the Green Party, they were like, you know what, he really deserves a nomination. We're going to help him. But, and so they were, so ultimately they were let down. But at the same time, it's like, again, if you say it's wrong for the DNC to rig their primary, then you would have to say it's wrong for the Green Party to just toss out their primary and give the nomination to somebody else, right? I mean, it's a little hypocritical. If you're really angry at the DNC for what happened to Bernie in 2016, but then saying, you know what, Green Party, you should have given it to the more viable candidate.
We got a couple. I just want to get, for the sake of time, I want to get to a couple of questions.
Sure.
Thanks so much for the super chat, Ashura. Ask your guests how many states are the Greens on the ballot, and why have they not gone after the rest, and why they wait for after 6 years. Is Howie corrupt?
Okay. Can you leave that question up there? Because there's a lot of questions in that. Okay. So how many states are the Greens on the ballot? So in 2016, Jill Stein was on 48 states ballots. And I'm trying to remember exactly. It was like 48 total, with like being a write-in candidate in a number of states. So some states there's actual Green Party, sometimes there's not. Like sometimes in some states you register with a party, sometimes in some states you don't. So we can exist as a Green Party entity in about 23 different states. Same thing as Democrats and Republicans or something like that. They're in a few more states than we are. But there's some states where there's, people don't register with a party. We've been on the ballot in as many as 48 states for president. And we're usually on the ballot in about 23 states for other elections. We don't only run for president. We run for U.S. Senate, U.S. House, city council, school board. We run for everything. The second question is, why have they not gone after the rest, and why they wait after 6 years? I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Well, to be like, I'll tell Ashura. So being like 48 states, that's actually pretty good. That's really good. So to give you an idea, I think People's Party picked up Florida, and I know they just picked up Virginia. Those are the two that I know about. So the fact that there's 48 states, that's pretty good. And I'm glad you mentioned that it's 48 states, because this just goes to show you something, you guys. Jill Stein was on the ballot in 48 states. So if more people vote third party, this actually could have made a big difference. Do you see what I mean? Like when people say, no, third parties aren't viable. 48 states. Imagine if those people would have voted for her, would have voted for the Green Party instead of voting for Democrat.
Another good point here is with that, Jill Stein could have won 97% of the Electoral College vote, being on 48 states ballots, right? And I think based on that, the FEC says, oh, you got to have 15% in nationwide polling in a certain number of polls, certain specific polls, to qualify to be on the presidential candidate debate. It should be based on how many states you're in and how much of the Electoral College votes you can win, in my opinion. But that's another lawsuit, we got to fight for. So we are on the ballot in a lot of states. We're not just waiting every 6 years. After this whole episode with, my experience with first Bernie in 2016, which got me very interested in politics, my experience in 2020 with, Jesse almost getting into the race, but not quite getting in the race. And really disappointed by Howie. Here in Maine, I was working with Lisa Savage, who was running for Senate.
Yep.
She was running as an independent. She was originally a Green. We actually have a lot of difficulties getting on the ballots as Green here in Maine, even though we have a strong Green Party. So I'm dedicated to what's going on in my state now. I've withdrawn from the Green Party of the United States, doing stuff at the national level, although I'm still a delegate there and a committee member there. But really, I think it's important that we look at what's going on in our states and what we can do. Again, we have ranked choice voting here in Maine. You guys tried to get in Massachusetts. You were close. Mm-hmm. Bummer. I hope it happens in the near future. So we have a real opportunity to get somebody elected at the federal level here in Maine. So, recently I've been looking into like how many people we have elected in school boards and town councils in Maine. We have over 50 Greens elected in local office here in Maine. It's not nothing. We have mayors elected around in different states. We just had somebody elected to mayor somewhere in Illinois. We had Cam Gordon, who was on the city council in Minneapolis, during the time of the riots and protests, over George Floyd. So, and he was a very important role there. They were actually looking at a resolution on reparations there in Minneapolis. And that's in the Green Party platform and something that Cam was fighting for hard there. So Greens are making a difference. We are getting on the ballot. We're not just in one or two states. We don't run every 4 years. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I'll take those comments on Rockfin, Eric. Thanks so much. Roger Meadows, thanks for the tip on Rockfin. As a Hulk Hogan fan back in the day who hated Jesse for his biased commentary against him growing up in the 80s, I have come to love Jesse through his politics. All you got to do is run on executive orders you will give day one, January 20th, 2025, force the government to negotiate for lower drug prices, deliver Medicare for all, Libby Montana style, relieve all student debt, take weed off Schedule 1 list and have Treasury mint coins and assign them the values needed to pay for what you want, as Dr. Kaboub said in your interview. Just say, I am going to nominate Treasury Secretary who will mint those platinum coins. You just guarantee re-election on your first day. Now let's see a future president rescind those executive orders. Done. Just run on those things. You got this, Jesse. Thanks so much for that, Roger Meadows. And can you flip me back on the other side? Thank you so much. There's one more question here real quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Steve said, thanks for the super chat, Steve. The Greens should have got down on their knees and begged Jesse to be their nominee. I mean, Howie, are you serious? Thanks so much for that, Steve. And Ashura said, The Greens are at odd with their Black caucus. Why? Thanks so much for the super chat, Ashura.
Okay, so again, I don't disagree. We should have begged Jesse to be our nominee. But at the same time, we have a primary process, and do we? Again, we would have been just as bad as the Democratic Party if we'd said, you know what, Howie got all these, Howie was actually trying to run for, the nomination, and a lot of people in many different states were like, well, Howie's probably the best we can do this cycle, and it didn't leave a good feeling for me, right? Because I thought we really needed a candidate like Jesse to do more. But yeah, it's just and to be fair too, a lot of people they know Jesse was governor in Minnesota, right? But they weren't really aware of how progressive Jesse has become over the last few years. And I say last few years, but it's actually, if you followed his progression, it's over a decade probably. He's been very, much on the left, although he does appeal to libertarians too. In fact, right. I'd like to say that the Green Party is actually eco-socialist and left libertarian at the same time. That's why Jesse could actually do well in the Green Party, I think. But if you see his show, on RT America, The World According to Jesse, it's very clear that Jesse does have the Green Party values that, really resonate with the American people. The question there, do you want me to answer that about the Black Caucus as well?
Yeah, because I did see something about that, and we got to be careful what we say on here because of the censorship. But I did see that they disagree with the mandates. Is that the sole issue, or is there something else that may be going on?
So to my knowledge, I mean, that's the biggest thing right now. Is the it has to do with, there was a statement by the Green Party United States co-chairs, right, which is 9 people, put out a statement. They're essentially spokespeople for the party, but they're not necessarily speaking the will of the party, if you will. There were a lot of people, myself included, that were not crazy about, or I really disagreed with that statement, and I thought it was a very bad move for our steering committee to make, and I was somewhat vocal about it. The National Black Caucus drafted a counter statement to it, and to be honest, again, it is being talked about at the national level, about releasing that statement and having that counter statement out there, and I think it already has been released out there in certain channels, but so it is being talked about. I've withdrawn a little bit from the national level, but that is the big point of conflict, is over that.
Okay, and one more question, Justin. Hi, Sabby and Justin. This is from a kid. Why does the Green Party continue not to apply lessons learned, marketing and campaigning early in stronghold areas they can win, and promote strong and charismatic candidates? Thanks.
I think we're trying to do that. It's a point that I've made here recently is, what we lack are people that are willing to really go all out and run as a Green. It takes a lot of courage. Another candidate I was actually hoping for in 2020, somebody that would stand up and have courage, was Tulsi Gabbard, right?
Whoa.
Now, here's the thing. Now, okay, granted, she has not been that good. She's very anti-war, which is very much with the Green Party, and I think she stands for a lot of our values. And the I was like watching the debates, the Democratic Party debates, and she's not going to win a single, or maybe 1 or 2 delegates. But if she were to actually announce from the debate stage, in one of the Democratic Party presidential debates, hey, you know what, screw you guys, I'm going Green and I'm going to get the nomination, and I'll see you in November. That would have taken a lot of courage, but it would have been the right thing for Tulsi to do, in my opinion, right? Instead, she backed Joe in the end, which was sad. But we need more candidates with courage, not just at that level, but also run for school board, run for city council, run for state representative. We need to build up our candidates and get them experience in office, right? So we do need to focus more at the grassroots level, right? And that's what we're doing here in Maine. We also need, in states where we have big opportunities like Maine, and the Green Party of the United States did do this a little bit. They focused on Lisa Savage, even though she wasn't running as a Green, but she was backed by her party. She was a former Green, couldn't be on the ballot as a Green because of restrictive ballot access laws in Maine. That's a whole other conversation, maybe. But so, yeah, we do need to focus, and we are, I think, learning from past mistakes or, past lessons. And really where I'm at right now is we need to have a victory, a big victory, like in Maine, where we have ranked choice voting. We could actually have a big victory. Lisa was an amazing candidate for those of you that saw her. And so that's where I think it's at. We gotta, again, a lot of people are fixated on the presidential race. And granted, we could have had a great candidate in Jesse Ventura. I wish he'd done it, right? I wish he'd had been able to get through it, right? And actually say, I'll be your candidate, right? I'll put myself out there. I'll go through the primaries. I'll get the delegates. I'll win. It didn't happen. But we really do need to say, look, it matters so much at the local level. We need to get people, as state representatives and state legislators. That's going to be what really builds us in the end to having that success, getting elected at a federal level race. And again, if we can break through at the federal level, just one congressperson or one senator, that's going to be a game changer. So that's what I'm shooting for. But at the same time, we do need to be thoughtful about the presidential candidates we have. We do want somebody that's going to be exciting and has that name recognition. I agree with all that. And so I will continue to try to find candidates like that for president as well, as much as I can. But I am focusing more on the state level. And, it's, we really, if anybody that's willing to run for office, please encourage them to do so. We need people now so much more than ever to really represent our voices, to run for office, but it takes a lot of courage. And so let's be there for each other. Let's elevate the people, the voices out there that will make good leaders and get them running for office.
Right. I just want to add too, for those of you who might be new to my channel, Delilah Barros, she is actually one of the women on the Ethnic Women's Liberation panel that I do once a month. Delilah is running Green Party in Texas, and she's running for governor. So I wish more people would bring her on, because a lot of people don't know. Everyone knows that Governor Abbott is running again, and they know that Beto's running. And I think people really need to know that there is also a third party candidate that's running who really knows the needs of the people in Texas. So
true. Delilah is just amazing. Getting goosebumps. Big fan. And I hope she does well. So glad you mentioned her.
Absolutely. And I have a couple minutes here, but before you go, I do want to play this video from Jesse Ventura about political parties. I want everyone to listen to this, because this is something he realized a long time ago that some of us, like myself, realized a lot later on. So I'm just going to mute my mic really quick so I don't have an echo, and everyone listen to this.
To save our country, we need to abolish the political parties, make them political action committees. And there's one thing we could do to start off with. Why do we put, and I refer to them as the Democrips and the Republicans, because they call the blue states Democrats. Well, that's also the colors of the Crips, blue. And naturally, the Bloods color is red, and the Republican states are called red states.
And for those who don't know what you're talking about, these are two of the most infamous gangs. They started in Los Angeles, the Bloods and the Crips. They want to kill each other, and they wear these colors, the blues and the reds. So you're basically likening the politicians in Washington these days to gang leaders and gang members. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true, and they're worse. Let me explain why they're worse. The Crips and the Bloods, the street gangs, well, they can be devastating to a certain small part of the population. The Democrats and the Republicans, the Democrats and Republicans, they affect everybody in this country. And they've been in charge for over 100 years. So how can they say they're not responsible for the horrible state that our country's in today? Our debt is beyond control. We've got politics now where there, as Jeb Bush said, there's no compromise anymore. Nothing gets done. If Obama wants to do this, the Republicans are opposed to it. If the Republicans want to do something, the Democrats are opposed to it. The best thing we could do is on every ballot, remove all gang names and gang symbols. Allow them to only run on their names. That way it becomes important that the voter educate themselves. What does John Smith stand for? And because right now, when you go in to vote, if you're conservative, you don't need to know any names. All you need to do is look for Republican. If you're liberal, all you need to do is look for Democrat. You don't even need to know the name of the candidate.
I mean, this all.
I'm sorry, but I love that. Greg Bruce said, nah, Crips and Bloods are more pro-worker than Democrats and Republicans. That is so true. Justin, thanks so much for coming on. This has been awesome. I hope everyone learned something. I do want to make one little small correction, because I know people say this a lot about Tulsi Gabbard, but she's not anti-war per se. She is against these regime change wars, but she's not anti-war.
That's a true point. Yeah, I thought you would have been a good candidate, again, but it's we need that person to have courage, though, and it takes a lot of courage. Jill Stein is one of the most courageous people I can think of. It's she really put her neck out there, and anybody, I mean, even Howie, running for president, it's you take a big risk, and anybody running for office, kudos to them, especially if they're doing it from a place where they're representing the people, because they're going to get attacked. But it's time to stand up and stand strong, get your people out there with you, and run for office. It can make a difference in your community and beyond. So yeah. Thank
Justin,
you so much.
Thanks
Patty.
so much. Thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, shucks. Really love the show. And yeah, thanks for all you do.
Talk to you later. All right, guys. Here we go. Now, that is actually going to lead me into my next story. Some of you may have seen this. And I want to say, before I start going through this video, I do want to keep in mind, I know what it's like to put on an event. We've done this with the General Strike Summit over at RBN. And I do remember us getting attacked like heavily. And I do want to be, I guess, conscious of that before I go into this video. This is not to attack them per se. This is to point out certain things that I noticed from this event that go back to the class issue and the need of urgency. And so there's certain clips I want to show you from this. Now, most of you probably know this, but there was an event with Marianne Williamson, Crystal Ball, Katie Halper, Bree. There was another woman, I'm not familiar with her, but it was called Left Takeover Seize the House. And there were candidates that are running for office, and they're running as progressives through the Democratic Party. Now, before I start playing this, I do want to let you know, a lot of these people, well, maybe not a lot, some of these candidates I've interviewed in the past over like a year ago. They're great people. They have goals and dreams, and they really do want to make a difference. The critique is not about the candidates. I want to be very clear about that. The critique is about the sense of urgency, and it's about the strategy. And I, for one, have noticed that the movement that we've had on the left, there is no energy behind it anymore. People are not energetic. People are not motivated like we were in 2016, like we were in 2020, actually 2018 as well. That energy has died. And the reason why that energy has died is because the squad has not lived up to expectations. They have been a complete disappointment. And I think I'm putting it mildly. But what I do want to say is that it was very clear to me when I was watching this event, the class divide is a big issue. And you guys know I talk about class a lot on this show. But I feel like this event just proved it even more. So the first clip that I want to show you, go to my private chat. I'm your private dancer. It's a little bit of Tina for you. 23 minutes. All right, let me get to that spot. What's love got to do with it? All right, I am sharing my screen now. So this first clip I want to show you, I want you to listen to this. And we talked about this over at RBN as well. But there's some other things that I kind of noticed that night I didn't bring up. Sometimes you remember things later on. You guys know how that is. Listen to this for a second.
At seizethehouse.com. These people, by definition, do not have corporate support. And one of the things that Crystal already said, it's hard to run for office. It is brutal out there. And particularly some of these people, they are so good. If they were in Congress, they would change things. But getting there is difficult. And when we have to support.
Okay, that's the first problem. That statement right there, when Marianne said, if they get into Congress, they will change things. I've heard that statement before. I heard that statement when the squad was running. I think at this point, it's probably best that we don't make promises to the voters that they're going to do that. I think we need to wait and see what happens. I would not make that promise right now. I would not do that. And you guys know, I've been very clear about this. I'm not voting Democratic Party. Again, I've interviewed some of these candidates. I have no problem with the women on the panel. The problem that I have is the class issue, the sense of urgency, and the strategy, because I don't feel like it's working. But I don't think that we should be promising people that they will change things, because we've heard this before and people get their hopes up and then they're crushed. They're disappointed because they don't do what they said they were going to do. Just wanted to point that out. I'm going to go back in.
Support them is right now during these primaries. So if you go to seizethehouse.com, or if some of you have already given, I want to thank you, have been supporting at candidatesummit.com. They go to the same place. You will see a whole bunch of progressive candidates. They're fantastic, and each of them have a video under their name.
So this was another thing. The way this event was advertised was uncorporate backed candidates. So it doesn't just have to be like people running through the Democratic Party. And I think that was another letdown, was that why aren't there any third party candidates on there? Why aren't there any independent candidates on there as well? If it's just going to be progressive candidates, then say that. But to just say non-corporate backed, like, I looked at this and I was so frustrated, because someone like Delilah should have been on this event. Like someone who's running third, she's running for governor of Texas. And I think back at the people that were ignored, that should have been given a lot of attention, a lot of media attention, like Princess Blanding. I brought her on. I interviewed her. Most people didn't. And Princess Blanding, she went viral on Twitter because they wouldn't let her debate. And she had already met the requirements. And she's running in the Liberation Party. And it was really disappointing to see that they're not being given this platform. So that was another thing. Like, if it's progressives, Democrats, just say that. Just say the Democratic Party. But to say just non-corporate back, I felt like I didn't like that. That made me feel some kind of way. Let me get to my second point in this video. 2443. This is the part where Crystal is going to, I believe this is the part where Crystal is going to say something to Bree. Let me come out and see.
Other very, like, this is not a comprehensive list tonight that you're going to meet of the great candidates that are out there. These are just the number that we could fit into this live stream. Bree, I wanted to ask you, we have all had our political hearts broken more than a time or two at this point. And there are a lot of folks out there, some of whom may be watching the stream right now, who say, you know what? I just don't believe this is going to work. I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think it's going to change. I believed in the squad. They haven't, you know, we just saw AOC this week, unwilling to even say a word against Nancy Pelosi in an interview. I just don't know that this direction is a fruitful use of time. And some people would even go further and say, in fact, by even backing people in Democratic primaries, you're sort of bolstering the Democratic Party and channeling people into a Democratic Party that does not deserve their support. So let me ask you personally, because you're sympathetic to that viewpoint, why are you here?
Well,
So I want to comment on that part there. Yeah, I'm one of those people that have been saying that. This is funny. As soon as I heard that, I was like, I'm one of those people. I was really surprised that that statement came from Crystal. I would have not expected that to come from her. I'm glad it was said because I think it needs to be acknowledged. I think it needs to be recognized that people are feeling some kind of way. And I think it's hard to sit there and just put on a smile and pretend like it doesn't matter. And by the way, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but the live chat was awful. Like the live chat was pretty cringe from what I saw in the comments. I did not comment, but I'll get into that in a minute. But I'm glad that she said that. Now I want you to listen to what Bree says about this. I'm glad Bree was on this panel because otherwise, I don't know. I just don't know.
That's a $64,000 question, $100,000 with inflation. And, you know, it's something that I think the candidates are going to have to answer as we talk to them tonight. The refrain that we've gotten, and I will say, you talked about heartbreak. I was covering the 2018 midterms for The Intercept. I was there the night that AOC unexpectedly won her primary in a huge bar in Queens that was empty with maybe 20 people in it and suddenly was packed to the gills with Cynthia Nixon and all these cameras and everything. And it was exciting. We really thought things were going to change. I was on the bandwagon, right? And so when I have offered the critiques that we've all been making over the course of the last couple of years, it's coming from a place of sincere disappointment, not kind of, you know, haterade.
Yeah.
And so when I reflect on these candidates, which seem, you know, as promising in some ways as AOC, I think it's really important to ask them specifically whether or not they would be willing to take the kind of adversarial attitude that we expected from AOC and other squad members. Because what we've seen is that some of these biographical things that we thought were going to mean a lot didn't pan out quite the way we expected. You know, I have a lot of respect for, you know, certain positions that someone like Cori Bush has taken. I have a lot of respect for the kind of life she's led and the choice to pursue politics when she was experiencing homelessness in a very recent past. At the same time, we know that is not a one-to-one ratio in terms of how they're actually going to behave when they're in the House. So I think of this live stream as an opportunity to ask the questions that I think a lot of viewers have on their minds and to hear what some of these candidates think about how elected Congress people are behaving now and what they would do differently if they were in their shoes.
Yeah. What do you think?
One of the things I noticed too from this video, I don't know what it was, but Crystal does not look happy. She does not look happy to be there. I don't know. Could have just been one of those days. But I think I would have expected more excitement, more enthusiasm, more, I don't know, maybe that's just me. Like I just naturally am that way, but I didn't feel the same vibe that I felt when I watched them promote candidates for 2018. I didn't feel that same surge of energy, enthusiasm, and it just seemed like it was just something that they were just supposed to do. Like it didn't come across that way to me. So, but going back in.
You think, Katie?
So
Well, I think that, we live in a particular system. I think that none of us here sitting here would say that that it's controversial to say that there's a lot of moral compromises that we see our politicians making, that they've made some disappointing decisions. I think that's obviously true. The question is, what is to be done about it, right?
Yes.
And I'm not opposed to third parties, but I don't see anything right now that's a viable alternative to trying to work an inside and outside strategy, right? So we do it. Nothing's going to be solved through electoralism only, right? We know the famous FDR quote, apocryphal though it may be, of "Now go ahead and make me do it," which he said to A. Philip Randolph when he wanted like labor rights and civil rights to be passed enacted by FDR. The truth is, I understand there's a lot of frustration. I don't know what the alternative is. I totally respect people saying that they're going to put their time, money, and effort into things that are not electoral politics. That's
this part right here. Okay, so this is what's interesting to me. This part where Katie says that she doesn't know what the alternative is, and she thinks that, the inside game is basically the best way, the best path forward for right now. The problem with that is that it's not working. The inside game isn't working. Someone reached out to me recently, and they were asking me, why aren't we trying to take over the Green Party instead? Why aren't we taking these progressive candidates and try to take over the Green Party? A lot of people have reached out to me since the stream happened. And it's interesting to me because there are people who do have alternative ideas and do have alternative methods and do have other strategies that they think would actually work. The problem is those people are not being spoken to. And I think what I would have liked to see at this event was to have somebody else on who has a different idea and at least to be heard in some way, shape, or form. But I feel like they're not talking to those people. They're not talking to the people who are like, well, let's try to, like the person told me, let's try to take over the Green Party, or let's try to push some of these third party and independent candidates. Let's hold the squad more accountable, which I would argue I've seen a lot of them, I think, on that panel. They'll criticize the squad, but I don't feel like they were criticizing them heavily as they should have been. There's a reason for that. I'll get into that in a minute. But if you don't see another alternative, why not talk to someone who does? I think that's the thing, is like, if I don't know something and there's a subject area I'm going to discuss that I'm not well versed in on my show, that's what I do. I'll bring on someone who is very knowledgeable about that subject. And I think what needs to happen is, I think all of the people like on this panel that are for like electoralism, I think they need to mesh up with the people who work well with direct action, mutual aid, activism. I think they need to talk to those people. I really do, because and I'm going to show you this clip in a second. There have been things that have been accomplished through direct action. And I feel like I wish there was more focus on that. I wish we were talking more about that and not just electoralism all the time. And let's be real, before RBN, before Revolutionary Blackout Network, was anybody talking about direct action and mutual aid on the left all the time? Just a question. I'm going to go back in.
everyone's right. I certainly think that these things can't act in a vacuum. If you don't have the movements forcing politicians' hands, nothing will get done. But it certainly makes a difference when you have the politicians in there whose hands are cleaner than others. So that's kind of how I see it.
But their hands aren't cleaner, though. That's the thing. Like, so this is the problem. Like, we put these progressive candidates in and assuming that their hands are cleaner, they're not taking corporate PAC money, yada, yada. But then what did they do? They still went along with the establishment Democrats. So were their hands really that clean? When you find out that billionaires were still giving money to Justice Democrats and still giving money to the Sunrise Movement, were their hands really cleaner? I don't know. Like, this is the thing. Like, what the squad taught us is that you can take grassroots donations and still go along with Wall Street and still go along with establishment Democrats. And that says a lot, because what that means is that the Democratic Party is that powerful because they are owned by Wall Street. The Democratic Party is a corporation. I want to remind everybody of that. It's not just a little party, it's a corporation. The money is still controlling them, even though they ran grassroots campaigns, because they went into a party that is still owned by money. It's owned by Wall Street. This is the problem with going into the duopoly. Even though you may not take corporate money, you're still going into a party that is owned by Wall Street, that is owned by corporations. I'm going to go back in.
And I think that if people, again, if you don't believe in this, then you should be doing a stream about some kind of collective
other project
organizing, mutual aid,
yeah.
you know.
That was not a good statement. So she just said, if you don't believe in this, then you should be doing a stream about some other activity. Crystal Ball chimed in and said other project. Now, this is where this is funny. There already are people doing those streams. At RBN, how many times have you seen us do streams about mutual aid, Rome's tour for the poor? But where the funny part is also is that Katie just told you she believes that these things should work together, that you can do electoral politics and direct action mutual aid, do both of those things. But then after that, they just said, if you don't think this is for you, then you go do some stream about your thing over there, about another project. Basically, what they letting you know, they don't want to do both. Did anybody else catch that? Let's go back, listen to that again. Hold on one second.
The House. So I think of this live stream as an opportunity to ask the questions that I think a lot of viewers have on their minds, and to hear what some of these candidates are behaving now and what they would do differently if they were in their shoes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Katie?
So I think that, we live in a particular system. I think that none of us here sitting here would say that that it's controversial to say that there's a lot of moral compromises that we see our politicians making, that they've made some disappointing decisions. I think that's obviously true. The question is, what is to be done about it, right?
Yes.
And I'm not opposed to third parties, but I don't see anything right now that's a viable alternative to trying to work an inside and outside strategy, right? So we do it. Nothing's going to be solved through electoralism only, right? We know the famous FDR quote, apocryphal though it may be, of "Now go ahead and make me do it," which he said to A. Philip Randolph when he wanted like labor rights and civil rights to be passed enacted by FDR. The truth is, I understand there's a lot of frustration. I don't know what the alternative is. I totally respect people saying that they're going to put their time, money, and effort into things that are not electoral politics. That's everyone's right. I certainly think that these things can't act in a vacuum. If you don't have the movements forcing politicians' hands, nothing will get done. But
you heard that, right? If you don't have the movements forcing politicians' hands, nothing will get done. But then listen to this part.
But it certainly makes a difference when you have the politicians in there whose hands are cleaner than others. So that's kind of how I see it. And I think that if people, again, if you don't believe in this, then you should be doing a stream about some kind of collective
other project
organizing.
Yeah.
Boom. Did you catch that? So they letting you know right now, at least Katie and Crystal, they're letting you know right now, they not trying to go in that lane. Their lane is electoral politics. The people who want to do the movements, let them do their own thing. Let them handle that. But how are these things supposed to work together if we're separated? Can someone explain that to me? Like this, that's what really caught me. And I didn't notice that the first time around. But when I went back and I was trying to come up, with my notes and stuff for tonight, when I went back, I took a second look at that and I was like, wait a minute. So Katie, at least Katie and Crystal letting you know, when it comes to the movement part and the direct action part, nah. So how is it supposed to work together? I'm gonna go to my next timestamp. That was 27:22. All right. So the next one that I'm gonna go to is about people losing hope. That's the one I want to get to. 43. Yeah, I think that's the spot. 41 for okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Shuffling.
So we're
Sorry.
going to be now joined by Mike Ortega.
Oh, okay.
And let me just tell you who Mike Ortega is while we get him ready. He is a former garment cutter and meat packer and current biomedical engineer. He's also a father and a husband, and he's running against a Blue Dog Dem in California's 46th district. Very excited to be joined by him. He's also, as you'll see, he identifies as a socialist, so we're going to talk about that. And as he's getting ready, just one other thing I want to add is that I think that I'd much rather be disappointed by more progressives in power
exactly.
than try
Thank you.
to act within the world in which we live right now, where there aren't that many. I feel like we've skipped a step a little bit. And even, even people who, not to sound like a Leninist, but even if you have that perspective, there is something that's known as a political education. And in order to even learn that electoral politics aren't the way forward, we have to go through the step of having more progressive elected. Then you can say that's
Okay, that part right there. The part where Katie said she'd rather be disappointed. Here comes the class issue. Now, Crystal's not on this panel anymore, and this is what I want you guys to understand. Again, this is not to attack those women. I don't have issues with anyone on that panel, but there are things that I think need to be pointed out, especially in reference to sense of urgency and class. When you come from a place of wealth, it's easier to say that you'd rather be disappointed. Because here's the thing, if these candidates get into the House and they don't do what they said they were going to do, they end up being like the Squad, or even with the way the Squad is behaving right now, their lives aren't really affected. They are of a different class. Do you see what I mean? They're not working class. Crystal Ball is a millionaire. Some of them come from wealth. So that's the thing. If these candidates get in, and the ones who came before, if they don't do their job, they're not affected. It doesn't affect their lives, you guys. If you already have health insurance, especially good health insurance, and the Squad doesn't do what they said they're going to do, if you're already making way more than a living wage, if you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay your rent, if you don't have to worry about how you're going to be able to buy food, if you don't have to worry about whether or not you can afford to have a family, to buy a house, if you don't have to worry about the necessities in life, if you are able to live your life without having to worry about these financial constraints, you are not affected. And this is the point that I think is very important. I would have really liked to see them talk to people who are working class. One of the reasons why I decided to do this show is because I've noticed this for a couple of years. I would watch like leftist commentary. A lot of the hosts were like wealthy. A lot of them were coming from wealthy families, or they gained their wealth like in this space. Not many of them working class. But I would see them speak for working class people. People want this, people want that, they want this, they want that. And rarely hear them speak about poor people. And my question is, how can you speak for working class people? How can you say what working class people want and need if you've never been working class? If you don't have anybody in your social circle that's working class, you don't know working class people, how can you say what working class people want? If you've never been poor, how can you talk about what it's like to be poor? This is the class divide. There's a difference between the sense of urgency. And I think that in order to fully understand this, I think if you have not had that personal experience, I think you need to talk to people who have. I'll use myself as an example, and I don't think I've told you guys this. I know what it's like to be on both sides, not the wealthy side. I grew up middle class, and then in 08, went right into the housing crash, and I was poor. According to the numbers, I was just below the poverty line. But I wasn't poor enough that I could get government assistance. I was in that bracket. So I worked 2 jobs, and I was still poor with a college degree. Some of you know about this part of the story, that I couldn't find a job. I had a hard time finding a professional job that would pay more than $8 an hour. A lot of those companies that were hiring at that time, it was retail and restaurants. I lived in South Carolina at the time because that's where I went to college. So I did both. I was a waitress and I was a sales associate. I had 2 jobs, and I had a college degree, and I had student loans. And I still have student loans. I was poor, I would say, for about 5 years. For 5 years, I did that hustle. Working 2 jobs is not fun. I didn't have health insurance because I couldn't afford it. I know how much it costs to go to the doctor when you don't have health insurance. But remember, at the same time, I was in that little income bracket where I didn't make too little that I could get government assistance. So I still had to pay full price for groceries and everything else, and my rent. 5 years. Am I poor now? No. The only reason I'm middle class now is because I'm married. If I were single in Massachusetts with what I make, I'm in education. You guys know we don't make much. I would be just above the poverty line. A lot of people don't realize that. They see Sabby has this house. What is she talking about with income and wealth and da da da? Sabby's married. And even with that, we had to get help from our parents. Can you imagine graduating from college thinking you're going to get this big time job, and then just to realize that even when you get into your 30s, you're still going to ask your parents, you have to ask your parents for help? That was not what I envisioned. So I know what it's like to be poor. And one thing I can tell you, when you are poor, it is really hard to dig yourself out of it. When you are at the bottom, it is incredibly difficult to get, not even to the top, just to get out of the freaking hole. If you're already above ground, you have an advantage. That's why it took me 5 years. Point being, I know what it's like. I know what it feels like to be poor. I think we need to let people who had those experiences and dealt with those financial difficulties, we need to hear from them instead of letting people who are in a, like I said, they're in a different class, you guys, letting them speak for those people. And I don't think that we should shame the voters for choosing not to do this. Again, I have nothing against the candidates. I've interviewed a lot of them. But at some point, people have the right to change course. when they see that they've put money into a project, into a strategy that did not pan out for them, and they still don't have health insurance, or they're underinsured. They're still not getting a living wage. Cops are still killing unarmed Black people. Nothing has improved in the community. The schools are still underfunded. I know about all of that. So I think that would have been something that I would have really liked to see them talk to working class people. And I don't see that happening. I don't. So when you are from that class, when you are wealthy, you don't really understand. You really don't. And I don't know how else to explain that, but you really don't. You don't know what that's like until you have to actually go through it. So to look at us and tell us that we still need to go vote, that we still need to keep doing the same strategy, that we still need to keep voting for the Democratic Party, nah, I can't do it. I can't do it. And there's one more thing that I did notice too. And someone brought this up in the chat. Where was the Black agenda? I didn't hear anything about reparations. I didn't hear anything with the criminal justice system, the policing system. Let's be clear. Black people, we're voters too. And you can't just not talk about our issues because you're not one of us. You can't. Now, people say things about third parties not having a chance. You know who did have reparations on their platform? The Green Party. And you want us to continue to vote for Democrats. The Democratic Party, who right now has sanctions on Afghanistan. They're starving people in Afghanistan. They're funding the police state. They're giving more money to the police. They've deported more people. Kids are still in cages. Black communities are still underserved, underfunded, and over-policed. And not once did I hear anything about the poverty situation. And that is not being solved through electoral politics. All of those issues connected go right back to capitalism. And they're not addressing it. They're not mentioning it. We have to address the capitalism problem. This is why we have these issues. And putting other people in isn't going to change anything because the party is owned by Wall Street. And until somebody comes to me with a strategy on how they're going to get the money out, I don't want to hear you need to go out and vote for them anyway. I don't want to hear it. And I don't hear anybody talking about that. I don't know how long we are expected to keep playing this game. I really don't. But I know I'm not playing it. Now, there are two other points that I want to bring up. One is about direct action, and the other is about the money. Now, I want you to hear from one of the candidates themselves about direct action working. So let me get to that point. Alice, I see you in the background. I'm running a little bit over, but I'll get to you. So let me get to that point really quick. Oh, hold on, you guys. I got to look at the number. Sorry. 4153. Oh, okay. 5154. I see it. I see what I did wrong. All right. So this is the part about direct action. And I'm glad that she said this. This is coming from. All right, here we go. Let me share my screen.
Tacoma Housing Now. We did a lot of direct actions. We went into an empty middle school, into an empty hotel, just to get people from homeless camps that we work with more housing. But one of the common complaints as well of people who are homeless, especially in camps, is that the city refuses to provide trash service to them. And so what we did was we took a cue from the Young Lords who did this back in the 70s. We went to the camps with 2 U-Hauls, 2 rental trucks that we had rented. We picked up over 100 bags of trash, mountains and mountains of trash, piled them into the U-Hauls, and then drove to City Hall and dumped it in front of City Hall. And then what do you know? A couple hours later, the city managed to take the trash away. And so it just shows that what is possible when you actually challenge the ruling elite, especially through direct action. And that's
that part right there. So that is Rebecca. She's one of the candidates and she is an activist. Now, you heard what she just said, that you can challenge the elites through direct action. And she's actually seen that work and she's experienced with that. This is why I say we need to flip what we're doing. We've been putting a lot of attention into electoral politics and a little bit into direct action and mutual aid. I think we need to flip that and we need to start doing 80% direct action, mutual aid, and 20% electoral politics. Because Katie Dalper just told you this herself. You need those movements to put the pressure on those politicians. We're not having a lot of movements. We have a lot of labor strikes that have been going on, and that's awesome. But we need a powerful movement similar to the March on Washington. We need something like that. And we need to show up with a list of demands. You can't just march and just be like, yeah, we don't like Joe Biden, get out of there. No, you need a list of demands of all the things that we want them to do. But I'm telling you right now, at the end of the day, the money is the biggest problem. And this is why I don't think we need to put most of our energy on electoral politics. If you are going to do that, I think you need to do third party or independent candidates. But if you know the money is the problem, why are we still trying to play the same hand? If I'm playing a card game and I'm continuing to play the same hand that I keep losing, why would I continue to do that and be expected to win? There's one more spot that I want to get to, and then I'm going to bring Alice on. And this is the part about the money going to candidates that was not supposed to. So here we go. Now, this is coming from Christine Olivo. Christine has been on the show. I've interviewed her before. She's another one she was an activist first before she was a candidate, before she ran for office, and she's ran for office before. Now, this starts at 156. So right about there. Okay. Listen to what Christine says about the money. This is important.
That way, this district is vote blue no matter who. That is what we have ingrained in the voters' minds. And I understand that people say, oh, you're running as a Democrat, you're a sellout. No, I'm not a sellout, because at the end of the day, Twitter is not going to win my election. The voters are going to win my election. I have to fight with the people in this district, and the people in this district, they're not supported progressive candidates. And I'm just going to be real, because we have people like the Workers Families Party, or we have people like
that could actually help you make a difference here.
What would really make a difference is if these major companies, organizations that say that they support progressive candidates actually supported progressive candidates. And I'm just going to be real, because we have people like the Workers Families Party, or we have people like Justice Democrats. We have all these amazing organizations, and they are still choosing to side with establishment Democrats. We need these major organizations to endorse candidates like myself. And I want to give a shout out also, because she's not here tonight on
Did you guys just catch that? Christine just talked about the money, which I've talked about before on the show, about these organizations taking money that they're not supposed to take. And she mentioned Justice Democrats, the Working Families Party. I would also add Sunrise Movement. But that just goes to show you, I'm glad that Christine said that. I'm glad she called that out because it's a problem. It's a problem. And I think more people need to address that. But like she just said, and I'll play it again.
Twitter is not going to win my election. The voters can accept an independent candidate. They can't.
Help people who are listening to this understand how they can support you to break through, because it is an uphill battle. It sounds like you're getting there's a right-wing attack, and obviously you have to deal with the conservative, blue dog incumbent. What would help you the best? Do you need money for ad campaigns? Do you need money for staff and door knocking? What is it that could actually help you make a difference here?
What would really make a difference is if these major companies, organizations that say that they support progressive candidates actually supported progressive candidates. And I'm just going to be real, because we have people like the Workers Families Party, or we have people like Justice Democrats. We have all these amazing organizations, and they are still choosing to side with establishment Democrats. We need these major organizations to endorse candidates like myself. And I want to give a shout out.
There you go. I've been telling you guys, I was actually like, I can't say I'm surprised that Christine said that. I'm not, because she don't hold back. I'm telling you, I had her on here before. She does not hold back, but I'm glad that she said that on there because it needed to be said. We can't just sit back and pretend like these grassroots organizations aren't taking billionaire money. That's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. I'm going to bring Alice on, and Alice, I'm going to bring you on just a second. Let me get through these super chats really quick. And then you can do the last story with me too as well. Shout out to Troy and KC for this super chat. RT/Sputnik won't allow their hosts to be public with their political affiliations. Caleb Maupin mentioned something about this a while back. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you so much for that. Roger Meadows, thank you for the super chat. I got a question on Rockfin before he goes, Sab. Oh, sorry. I just saw that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thanks for the super chat. I'll get to the Rockfin comments at the end. Thank you so much for the super chat, Oz. Bingo, Sabrina, promises are worthless. Thank you for the super chat, Ashura. It's not because of the squad. The energy is dead. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for the super chat, Steve. Sabby, they were ratioed in their own chat. Yeah, I saw. It was pretty brutal. And thank you for the super chat, Ashura. It was a non-inclusive stream. It was D Club only. Thanks for this super chat as well. The stream seemed Nina Turner heavy. She talked more. I did notice that. Yeah. Thanks for the super chat, Brothwhite. If voting worked, they wouldn't have allowed it. Ooh, that's an interesting point. What's going on, Indie Laugh? Welcome. Thanks for the super chat again, Brothwhite. Radical change has never come from government. It has always come from the streets. That's 100% true. Thank you so much, Justin, for the super chat. We can combine electoralism with activism if we elevate our leaders in the streets to the seats of power. Absolutely agree. We need to be in the streets, but we also need to be on the ballot to really change power. Thank you so much for that. And that's another thing I wanted to add as well. If they don't feel third parties are a viable option, which absolutely, like Bree actually said that she has voted third party, but if they don't feel that it's a viable option, you have to ask yourself, why is it not a viable option? And part of that is because those candidates do not get that exposure. Part of it's the money, but they don't get the exposure. Now, if you combine all of them together, they have hundreds and thousands of subscribers. So if they were to bring on these third party and independent candidates, they would get that exposure. And if they told their audience to support them, that could actually make a difference. I bring them on my show, but I have a small channel, but just saying, it's just an idea. Thanks so much for the super chat, Cool Blue. Some people don't know definition of working class. Thanks so much for the super chat, Blue Moon Red Wine. I can guarantee these ladies won't walk the streets and knock doors to get Latinos to vote for the next AOC. Now that we won't, they depend on us. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for the super sticker, Salma Ali. Thanks for this super chat, Ashura. You look like you were about to cry, Sabby. Preach. Oh, I get a little bit emotional when I think back to then because it was just a really hard time. Thanks for the super chat, Troy. I'm running behind, had to pause this, but I'm at work. But the lady you don't know is Juliana Furlano, frequently seen with Richard Wolff. Okay, maybe his student. Thank you so much for that. And thanks for the super chat, Justin. I'm a college grad, came home in 2012 to West Virginia and worked for $10 an hour and coached high school football. Lived in a car at times. The system designed to crush us. Yep. Justin knows what I'm talking about. And thank you, Cryosynth, for the super chat. These candidates won't come to the table with a message for all working class, no matter the party. They are tying themselves to the toxicity of Dems. Thank you so much for all of those. Alice, I want to go ahead and bring you on. I hope you don't mind doing this last story with me. So, welcome,
Okay.
Alice. So
Hi.
this is the
Hi.
yeah, no worries.
No worries. It's not anything I'm used to.
I went way over time, but this is the patron segment. So Alice is a Sabby patron. So patrons have the opportunity to come onto the show and they can ask me questions, do a Q&A. So Alice, I'm gonna go ahead and let you take it from here. Do you want to ask questions first, or do you want me to start the story?
You know, the reason I came on, if I can do this, is because I live in rural Cochise County, southeast Arizona, right near the Mexico border. It's rural, it's ranch land. And so it's not a question so much. It's the absence of what's going on in the rural areas that I really want to talk about. And I am an activist, and we are working here. Yes, I have voted Democrat, and yes, I have voted Nader, and I have voted Jill Stein. I think my favorite vote might be Jill Stein, Ajamu Baraka. I'm not sure. So on those things, I absolutely, I'm fed up with the Dems. I'm actually registered other because there is no Green Party here in Arizona. So if you register Green, you get registered other. You don't get registered Green. So that's so it's not a question I want to talk about. It's more like, well, here's a question. Why aren't rural issues covered? Because this is where food comes from. And like right now we're like in a drought crisis here. We're being overrun by this like a factory farm called Riverview, which is out of Minnesota. And we're living on groundwater. We have no rain. So yes, I agree. We need activism. We do need someone to run on a small level for Board of Supervisors. I wish you guys were running. I'd love to see you, Sabby, run for City Council of Boston. I'd love to see Bree run for City Council of New York City. I think that's where Bree is, right? New York or Washington. I can't remember.
I think DC.
Yeah. So I'd love to see you guys running. And I think the only person, and I live in a red district. So we're not working on I mean, we're dealing with Trump people. I walk into this store, this guy's got Trump stickers all over. And we sit down and we talk about the water issues because the wells are going dry. And that's what we're fighting here, is we're fighting to have sustainable water into the future. And there's about 3 groups working on it. I'm in one group, but we're working together and we're working across political spectrum. So I don't know what the question is, how do we get more coverage of rural issues? That is my dilemma, because you guys are all urban. I don't know any, because I listen to a lot of you, and I don't know anyone or why who comes out of a rural district.
Marlo, she's a friend of the show. She lives in, I forget the state, but she lives in a rural area. She came on to JB Font's show to talk about the rural issues at one point. But we're trying to get her to start like a show as well, because you're right, we don't have anybody like from the rural areas. But one of the things that she mentioned was the issue with broadband. Because like even during the stream, she said, if I cut out, just know that it's not me, it's the internet. We don't have broadband. She was talking about the food issues and how the farms were affected because they weren't getting enough snow like they usually get. So I agree. We definitely need to hear from those voices. So that is definitely something that I definitely want to look into, because you're right. Like, I don't know. I think most of my life I've been in some type of urban environment. I mean, even down south, I still lived like in the city per se. So the needs are different. And I think people should, and that's one of the things that really, I think, bothered me about what happened with Princess Blanding, because that was someone from rural Virginia and she just was ignored. And she came on here and she was talking about all the problems that they have in rural Virginia in her district. And she said those issues aren't even being addressed because everybody focuses on what's going on the coast, the cities on the coast. And it's true. And if you come here to Massachusetts, a lot of people think Massachusetts is just Boston. It's not. If you come here to Massachusetts and you go out to Western Mass, they'll tell you the same thing, that people forget about them. No one focuses on like the issues in the rural areas. It's just all about Boston.
Well, you should know I lived in Massachusetts for a long time. I lived in Cambridge for my hippie years, and I lived in Provincetown for 7 years in the 1970s. So I lived in Vermont. Bernie Sanders' wife was the interim president of my college, so I'm familiar with New England. I'm a New Yorker.
Awesome.
I'm a New Yorker.
Awesome. Yeah, so you
So-
lived in Cambridge. I lived in Cambridge for a couple of years. Did they call it, when you lived there, did they call it the People's Republic of Cambridge?
Probably. I was in the People's Republic of Berkeley as well, but I was in all the demonstrations, anti-war demonstrations in Cambridge, at Harvard Square. We'd go down to Harvard Square, and I don't want to tell you about those years. I was really stoned. So, but we were political in those years. But I'm okay. Maybe this isn't right to say, but I'm not stoned the way I was then. And I think my mom used to say to me, "That's how they want you. They want you stoned." And I look at Congress. Let's say I look at Congress. The only person my age who was progressive at all, maybe Dennis Kucinich, maybe Dennis, Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee goes back and forth, but she did. But she stood up against the war. I'll never forget that. So she's a hero for me in that way. So I don't have much else. I like you a lot, Sabby. I'm not a patron. Thank you. So we're working here. I'd love like someone like Jordan Sheridan to come down, because right now we're really in a fight. Right now we're really in a struggle with this. It's called Riverview. It's out of Minnesota. It's a huge operation. They're in Minnesota. The Minnesotans have been fighting them. It's a factory farm. They call themselves a dairy. They're not a dairy. They're an industry. And this small, well, it's a huge county. They have 150,000 herd of cattle. That's unheard of. And they're drilling wells a mile deep. They're stealing everyone's water. They're brothers. The name is Fair, and they're not fair, FEHR. And we're fighting them because they're trying to control the water of our county. Like tomorrow, I'm going to this group, they're trying to form this water district to control the water of our county. And they're presenting their program tomorrow. So a bunch of us have been going to their meetings and asking questions and trying to stop them. But of course, the government is, as you know, is owned by them. I mean, we're fighting them and we're fighting the state which people don't understand. Anyway, that's my story.
Yeah, I can definitely reach out to Jordan, and also I can reach out to Convo, Fiorella and Pasta at Convo Couch too about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we are in the middle of a struggle, and it would be great to get a little national attention. And because it's not just us, it's not just here. I'm talking about my little area, sure, because I know it. But this is happening. Because this Riverview that I talked about, they're in Minnesota, they're in South Dakota, they're in New Mexico. They're buying, just like Bill Gates is buying land, and Howard Buffett's son or brother, whatever, is buying land down here. I mean, what's happening in the rural areas is all those people are buying our land, buying all the land, and buying the water. And
that's so corrupt. I knew they were up to something. I knew that because Bill Gates, Mark Cuban, and Mark Zuckerberg, all of a sudden last year they started buying up land. Like Mark Cuban bought a town and said he didn't even know what he was going to do with it.
Yeah, and what's happened. They'll develop and they'll make money, and then the water will run out, and then they don't care, you know. Because there's a way to be sustainable. And if we could stop these guys, because there's also a really interesting influx of younger people coming into the valley. And they're doing alternative building with earth, building with straw, and what's happening is that the smaller builders are having a hard time getting permits. You get a permit for 6 months, then you have to renew. Oh, I'm exhausted from this, but you get the idea. And so, yeah, if we could get some, yes, Oak Flat, we're right there, exactly, absolutely. They're fighting for their lives too up there. So that's true. So
I'll definitely let them know.
I'm really grateful to you, Sabby, for doing this kind of thing, because we're folks who don't get heard. I'm just one. There are really. I'm so grateful to all of you. Really, I can't. It makes me cry, because without you, I mean, it's how you think and how you learn, and or me out here in the outback, you know. So thanks, and that's really it for me.
Oh, thank you so much. No, I really appreciate you coming on. I like to hear from different people, hear different voices, and to hear about what's going on in their communities. Because the reality is, I'm over here in the Boston area, and it's a completely different world from South Carolina, where my parents are. It's very different. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
You're really welcome. Thank you. Thanks so much, Sabby. I'll see
Talk
you.
to you later. Bye.
Okay. Take care.
All right, guys. So it's important to hear stories like that. Again, like a lot of times we don't know what's going on out there in rural America. So I need to see if I can bring more people on that live in like the rural areas. So if you guys know people, let me know. Let me know. Shout out, let me know. You got friends out there in the peeps? All right, I got one more story for you guys, and this one is about wokeism in the Democratic Party. Now, Nomiki Konst went on to Fox News where she had a little debate with a gentleman on there. And honestly, let me see if my picture's up. Okay, there it is. Okay, so this discussion was rather interesting, and I am not a fan of like majority reports per se, but the talking points in this segment were hilarious to me. And one of the things that is going to be discussed, and I want to give you a heads up about this. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but there are at least 30 Democrats that are retiring this year. So there's that. And they're going to touch on that. And they're going to talk about why people are not feeling Joe Biden, why the Democrats are not going to do well this year. So listen to this exchange, you guys. You know what's funny too? So like Nomiki Konst can go onto Fox News and it's okay. But if Jimmy goes on the Fox News or Aaron Mate goes on the Fox News, it's a problem. All right, here we go. Let me share my screen.
Journal editorial board writes it this way. If it can happen in San Francisco, of all places, Democrats should be worried. They need to escape their union bondage and woke fixations. Republicans have a great opportunity to press parental choice on curriculum, charters, and vouchers. The woke may wake up to a far bigger shock in November. Power panel now. T.W. Shannon, former Black Voices for Trump co-chair and former Speaker of the Oklahoma House of Representatives. Nomiki Konst, host of The Nomiki Show and a former national surrogate for Bernie Sanders. It is great to have you both. Let's kick it off. TW. Woke is on its way out if they're not careful, Democrats. Why?
Yeah, there's no question, Harris. I mean, listen, I wish I could take full credit for this as a conservative in the Midwest part of the country. But the reality is the COVIDian tyrants did this to themselves. We've watched this country completely implode under the leadership of Joe Biden. And even before that, we saw the woke agenda of the left completely trying to separate Americans with things like CRT and trying to define us based upon our color of our skin, not the content of our character. They've done it to themselves with these totalitarian policies that only seek to divide Americans and to consolidate power with.
So I want to chime in here for just a second. I understand where he's coming from. By the way, that introduction, Black Voices for Trump, I'm like, really, dude? Really? You want to talk about, you're playing about wokeism and you were introduced as Black Voices for Trump. So it's interesting to me. So he's talking about Joe Biden's presidency. We all know Joe Biden is epic failure. I knew he would not be a good president anyway. I think most of us knew this going into the situation. But what was interesting to me, oh, hold on. How did this get up here? Okay. What's interesting to me is he brought up the fact of like CRT, of course, critical race theory. This is a hot topic, a hot button topic. He is supposed to be the Black person that is supposed to basically show their audience that, hey, Black people have a problem with CRT too. So that is why he is on the show. I just want to be clear here, make that very clear. So anyway, he goes on to talk about CRT and complain about that. He's complaining about the fact that Democrats are too woke and they're pushing this. And I understand where some of that comes from. I think the Democratic Party has just, they have co-opted so many movements and slogans, and they have watered them down and turned them into what they want them to be. And I think that this is just really cringe. But what's funny to me is this is not the number one issue. The reason why people are angry with Joe Biden, the reason why his poll numbers are low, and this includes Democrats too, by the way, who voted for Joe Biden, is not because of the wokeism. It is because of the economic situation that is in this country right now. It is because people still don't have health care. People lost their jobs during the pandemic. People became unhoused during the pandemic. Come September, they laid all these people off of unemployment. Come November, 4 million Americans quit their jobs. They have been overworked in the labor field. They've been abused. People are not even getting pensions. People aren't getting paid family leave. People really started to feel the pressure of the economy and the capitalist system that we have in this country when the pandemic hit. Now, if you've ever been poor or if you've ever been working class, you were already feeling those pressures. What the pandemic did was it pulled the cover off of it. Now everybody sees what's going on. Meanwhile, CEOs doubled their wealth during the pandemic. Not once during this conversation are they going to mention that. They're just going to pretend like it's all because of wokeism. You have to talk about the economy. You have to talk about the class issue, the class divide that we have in this country. And what they're going to do is focus on left versus right and leave the class part out. So let me go back in.
In the Democrat Party, and they did it to themselves. When grandma was dying, Nancy Pelosi was going to get her hair done. When Americans were watching getting pink slips and losing their jobs, you had people like Barack Obama and AOC throwing parties and living on a different standard. That do as I say, not as you see me do. That doesn't work anymore, and Americans are tired of it, and they're going to be rewarded.
Let's be real. Republicans were throwing parties too. You see what I was saying about what they do with the left-right divide? And don't get me wrong, I'm no fan of Barack Obama. And I'm no fan of Nancy Pelosi. But Republicans were doing it too. At the end of the day, this is more about the class divide than it is about left versus right. Those people that he mentioned, yes, they're Democrats, but they're also wealthy. They're rich. That is why they were able to do those things. Let me go back in.
In the midterms for doing what's right and standing up for freedom.
Nomiki, I want to get to a couple of things with you, and you can roll in your rebuttal if you want. But let's pop up the Washington Examiner with this. The hold Democrats once had on cultural issues is breaking. Hence, why dozens of House Democrats are jumping ship now and retiring before the midterm elections, and why the party's House campaign arm warned its candidates this week that if they don't figure out how to combat the GOP's alarmingly potent culture war attacks, they will lose badly. And as of today, 30 House Democrats are either retiring or seeking a different office. Nomiki.
Well,
Everybody take a good look at this. You see this? House Democrats not seeking re-election. Some are not running. Some are seeking another office. All of these seats need to be filled. Just wanted to point that out. That is this year.
It's a redistricting year, and so the same thing's happening on the Republican side. That's what happens every redistricting year. But, there was one line there that was very powerful. Combating the Republicans' rhetoric, right? Their attacks. This never let a good crisis go to waste. When Donald Trump was handed the responsibility of of really making America the leader in combating COVID, what did he do? He was rallying against the American government and inspiring terrorist attacks on the Capitol.
That's not true.
So you want to talk
That's
about
absolutely not true.
Oh, goodness
All
gracious.
right, I'm going to step in there because you are putting incendiary things into the conversation. And I know that TW wants to rebut that. So quickly, and we'll come right back to you. Hold on, TW.
Yeah. There's no way we're going to sit here and pretend like Donald Trump was promoting terrorism. That you should apologize to American people for saying that. That's just not true. The reality is,
again, they're still keeping the focus on left versus right. Not bringing up the poverty situation. Not bringing up the living wage issue. The reason why Americans are unhappy. It's Trump bad, Biden bad, left versus right.
the reason Democrats are losing is because Joe Biden has told us over and over that the #1 problem in America is white supremacy, and it's not. That's not what's facing Americans. The people that are losing their jobs.
TW, I'm going to go back to Nomiki now. I just wanted you to respond on that one point.
Young lady, I live it. I don't have to get paid for it.
Don't call me.
Now he's trying to say that the reason why Democrats are losing is because Joe Biden tried to focus on white supremacy. I'm sure that it has nothing to do with the fact that he didn't fulfill his campaign promises. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that he hasn't canceled student loan debt. Nothing to do with the fact that he hasn't given everyone health care in this country. Nothing to do with the fact that he reneged on a lot of these campaign promises. Where's the $15 minimum wage? Where's the living wage? Where are all these things that he said he was going to do? He doesn't bring up any of the issues that actually involve the people. He brings up race. That's why people are mad with Joe Biden, is because of race. Doesn't bring up the issues that people actually have been complaining about, the tangibles that people need. And you know why he's not going to bring up those issues? Because then he's at a conservative audience. Then people will be looking at him saying, oh, well, that's socialism. How can you not fulfill any of these promises? We're in the middle of a pandemic. Going back in.
Young lady, sir. I'm a
bless your heart, ma'am.
I'm a grown woman, and you can come up with all the code you want. But the FBI said that the #1 problem in America right now is white supremacy, organized white supremacy. That
ask the people who lost their job if it's white supremacy.
Of the cap.
They picked the most stereotypical left-right characters that they could for this discussion. This guy even went the mile to say, bless your heart. That's something that people say down south sometimes, you guys, for those of you who don't know. They picked the most. Look, they picked this guy who's from this organization called Black Voices for Trump. They picked Nomiki Konst, and she comes on here and says, don't you call me ma'am. They picked the most stereotypical, don't you call me lady or young, whatever she said, most stereotypical right and left characters to come onto this show. Do you see what mainstream media does? Let's go back in. Let's go back in.
And so, let's talk about the people who lost their jobs, because Republicans are responsible for tax breaks for the wealthiest. They have no interest in unionized efforts. They're union busters. So if we want to talk about the real issues, you're making all these code words to distract away from the fact that people
Let's
are
talk about the real.
Joe Biden isn't doing any better. So you can't just blame some of these things. You can't just blame on Republicans. Let's just be real. Everybody was crying about the kids in the cages when Trump was in office. Now all of a sudden we're just pretending there's no kids in cages. By the way, they've been starving some of those kids at the border. They've been force feeding them. Now all of a sudden AOC and the rest of them are not crying down at the border saying, "Oh my God." Ah. None of it. None of it. This is so much theater. This is so much theater. I swear to God. Let me go back in.
real issues.
And Republicans
Let's talk about the real
doing
issues.
nothing to save them.
So I want to jump back in here because the far left agenda in your party, and of course you were a surrogate for Bernie Sanders. So you saw that your party picked more mainstream, so they thought. That's not exactly what they're getting right now, but that's what they thought. So let's just go back to the idea that now your brand, so to speak, is getting voted out potentially.
Did you guys just catch that word that she just said? She referred to it as her brand. Not her ideology, not her politics. She said her brand. Yes, Joy Duncan, your brand. Do you see what I mean? Let's go back in. Let's go back in.
People are saying, no, we're done with this. We want you to focus on inflation and those bigger issues. What do you say about that?
What people are saying that? When they say people are saying, who are they talking about? Who are the people that are worried about inflation? Who? Mention that.
If you look around the country to where the people who are not running for office again or switching districts, they're pretty much in more conservative districts. So those are the centrists of the party. You know, Todd Kaminsky, a senator in New York, just said he was stepping down. Catherine Rice said she was stepping down. Those are the conservative Democrats who realize that working people they don't want business Democrats.
Here we go again. We got someone who's wealthy talking about what working people want. Do you guys see it now? You know how many times I saw this happen over the years? Watching the news, even in left independent media. You have all these people who are coming from wealth, privilege, money, talking about what working people want. Why didn't Fox News bring on someone of the working class? She doesn't know. She doesn't know. I'm going to tell you something about Nomiki in a second. She doesn't know.
They want Democrats who protect unions, organized labor, and you know all those attacks against the school boards right now. That's an attack against labor.
Harris, you've got to let me respond.
Let me hold on one second. Let me just put one more thing in here. In California, we're looking at erosion of support for Feinstein and Pelosi. Pelosi is not exactly in the middle mainstream right now. She's being pulled a bit to the left in the House by AOC and some of the other so-called.
Oh my God, this woman needs to stop lying with these lies. Did you hear what she just said? She said Pelosi's not in the middle. She's being pulled to the left. On what? Didn't Pelosi just come out and say she's against defunding the police? Didn't she say that's not the direction we're moving with the party? She's against Medicare for all. She's against defunding the police. She's against canceling student loan debt. She lied to everybody and told people Joe Biden can't do it. Joe Biden can do that by executive order. What has Pelosi done that has moved her to the left? Oh, I know this woman is not trying to tell this lie. Get out of here. Are you kidding me? See, this is why I couldn't be on that show. This is why I couldn't be on that show, because I would say exactly just like, I would honestly, after she would have said that, I would have been like, girl, I know you need to get out of here with that lie. Let's go back in.
Called squad members. So I hear what you're saying, but that is a cobalt blue state and one in which progressive politics are very, very hot. I want to get to this. Turns out people in the Golden State, again, which is actually very blue, are souring on President Biden. A new poll shows that for the first time in that state, more voters disapprove of his job performance than approve of it. A huge change he had, as approval rating of nearly 60% just last summer, and won that state, both of them. That team right there on the screen won the state by 30 points. Brutal numbers for the vice president, Kamala Harris, from her home state voters. Only 38% approve. What's happening out there? TW, I'm coming to you.
Well, you've got two real issues, I think, that are facing the American people here. It's number one, COVID. The young lady on the panel mentioned the COVID numbers. More people have died from COVID under under this president than died under Donald Trump. Biden has overseen.
He forgot his name. Hold up, watch. Hold up. Listen to this, you guys. Watch.
Well, you've got two real issues, I think, that are facing the American people here. It's number one, COVID. The young lady on the panel mentioned the COVID numbers. More people have died from COVID under this president.
He forgot Biden's name. Oh God. I'm sorry. That was funny to me.
Than died under Donald Trump. Biden has overseen the pandemic. He was handed not only a vaccine.
People who are not vaccinated are dying.
That's not true. That's not true. People all over the world are dying because Joe Biden has failed to lead on the issue. And the second is the economy. They have been unable to generate economy.
And Nomiki, thank you.
Did you guys notice something? Once he mentioned the economy, she was like, "Oh, that's it. We got to wrap. As soon as he mentioned the economy, she was like, TW, we want to thank you and Nomiki for coming on. They gave her that cue really quick. The gentleman standing behind the teleprompter is like, cut, we got to go. They don't want you to talk about that. Don't get into the money. Let's go. Oh my God. What a catastrophe. I want to show you something really quick. Doobie doobie doo. Doop 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 doobie doobie doop 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 doop. Watch this. I told you I was going to show you something about Nomiki Konst. I told you guys you have a lot of people who are not a part of working class, never been working class, speaking for working class people on these issues. Watch this. You see this? Let me make this bigger. Nomiki Konst's mom. How many of you knew this? This is Nomiki Konst's mom. Kathy Konst was an elected legislator in New York State. How many of you knew that? What did I tell you? Oh my God. Working class, though. Working class. Let me go tell you what these working class people want, man. A joke. I want to make sure I got through everything here. Oh, I did not give a shout out to people on Patreon. Guys, thank you so much for everyone who is a patron. If you want to be a patron, I have 4 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, and the ultimate. Thank you guys so much. And their names are scrolling across the bottom of the screen as well. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate the support. I got something fun for you, and then I'm going to get to these super chats. You guys know that I've been doing this spotlight every night this month for Black History Month. Every night, it's a new person that you're going to meet. Tonight, the spotlight, I decided to do something a little bit different, and I realized it doesn't always have to be someone who was an inventor, right? So tonight's person is a little bit more, she's local. Well, she's not living anymore, but she was local for me. She was a Bostonian. You may be familiar with her. Some of you may not, depending on your age. I don't know. But I'm going to shout out this spotlight. She's one of my faves. She's always been one of my faves. So tonight's Black History Spotlight is the impeccable, wonderful Miss Donna Summer. I was a huge fan of Donna Summer. For those who don't know, no, I was not alive during that time, but her music was like timeless, right? Even though it was like disco music. So let me tell you a little bit about Donna Summer. I told you she is from Boston. Donna Summer professionally is known as Donna Summer, but her real name is LaDonna Adrienne Gaines. She was an American singer, songwriter, and actress. She gained prominence during the disco era of 1970s and became known as the Queen of Disco, while her music gained a global following. Summer earned a total of 42 hit singles on the US Billboard Hot 100 in her lifetime, with 14 of those reaching the top 10. She claimed a top 40 hit every year between 1975 and 1984. And from her first top 10 hit in 1976 to the end of 1982, she had 12 top 10 hits, more than any other act during that time. Another cool thing about her that you may not know, Donna Summer did live overseas. She is one of the artists that I've told you about that moved abroad to get more work. So that was something that was happening during that time with African-American artists. They decided to move to Europe to pursue their art, to start their craft there, and then come back to the United States. So she is one of those. In 2013, Donna Summer was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I've been there. In 2016, Billboard ranked her 6th on its list of the greatest of all time top dance club artists. There is something interesting about her as well. Not even get into all the songs here. She did pass away in 2012. But one of the things about her is if you come to Boston, oh, where did it go? Shoot, I lost it. Oh, found it. Donna Summer actually did a lot for the LGBTQ community. She's raised money for them and for AIDS crisis as well. It is hard, I think, for those of us who like to dance to find someone who does not like Donna Summer. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is my spotlight for tonight. Bad girls. Talking about the sad girls. Sing it with me, guys. Bad girls. Toot toot. Ah, beep beep. Toot toot. Ah, beep beep. All right, let me get to some of these super chats here. Thanks for the super chat, Cool Blue. Typically about 97 to 99% combined votes for Republicans versus Democrats. In exit polls, Republican Democrat combined for about 70%, remaining 30% are independents. Yet those indies give 90 or more percent of their votes to Republicans versus Democrats. 100% true. Thank you so much for that, Cool Blue. All we got to do is we got to switch the tide, you guys. We got to convince more people to start voting Democrat. Marcus said, Sabby, reminder, you'll be on Political Matrix Sunday, 4:30 with Nico, Glory, Unapologetic, and my co-host Chris Lawson would have been on here. But I got a strike today. Oh, no. Oh, Marcus, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you for reminding me because Marcus knows, like people know I forget. Thanks so much for the super sticker, Sigrid. Thank you for the super chat, Justin. We're grateful for you too, Alice. Thanks so much, Sabby and Alice. Beautiful. Yeah, Alice was awesome, huh? Blue Moon said, how the fuck do they criticize Jimmy Dore for talking about Syria on Fox News and they go talk about wokeism? Touchdown. Thanks so much for the super chat, Ashura. Get in touch with Max Blumenthal. He writes his articles. Yeah, I think Max is out of the country. But you did remind me I do need to check back in with him. Thank you so much for that. Jenna said Paula Jean Swearigan would be a great guest host for a Rural Left Summit. Jenna, here comes Jenna with the ideas. I love it, Jenna. Thanks so much for the super chat. Oh, whoops, sorry, wrong one. Thanks for the super chat, Ashura. Why is Nomiki the one for CRT talk? Oh. Ashura knows where I'm coming from. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks so much, Steve, for the super chat. Alice, a beautiful soul. We love her. Isn't she awesome? Thanks for this, Ashura, as well. NATO Kunst is a warmonger when Dems bombs excuses. Oh my God. Ashura is coming with the punches tonight. Thanks for this one as well. Boutique leftists like NATO Kunst are hypocrites. Dang, Ashura, you're really going hard. Thanks for this one as well. If Dor or Glenn goes on Fox, cry, but my D clan can. Thanks for this one as well. Nomiki was childish as hell, looking spoiled. Oh my God. Good Lord. Thanks for the super chat, Ashura. Conservatives love to trigger neo-libs and melting. And thanks for this one too. Young lady is the trigger word for NATO cunts. You're killing me tonight. Thank you for this super chat, Steve. Make Alice a regular on your show. We love her. Oh, thank you, Steve. Yeah, she's so sweet. And thanks for this one too, Ashura. Where are the black people from TYT, MSDNC to Fox? Oh, the cruelness. Thank you so much for the $10 super sticker, Bill Cunningham. Oh, man. I don't even know what to say. You're hitting it hard tonight. You're coming in hot. I'll take those comments on Rockfin. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for the super chat, Roger Meadows. The tip on Rockfin. After the Working Families Party endorsed Cynthia Nixon over Cuomo, and Cuomo being the person he is to get back at WFP, he raised the bar on how many have to vote in each election in order to get on the ballot for the next election. Of course he did. Ironically, WFP was able to maintain, but other third parties here, like GP, was kicked off. What is the plan to reverse that in New York State? Holy duty, abolish parties. Who's been saying that all the time, Sabby? I've never seen this before, but that has been my argument all this time. Every point he made was mine. Also, science says Sabby energy cannot die. It can only transform. In this case, the energy transformed into workers, the people taking matters into our own hands, be it through strikes, efforts to unionize, and the Great Resignation. Thank you for that. Sabs, I see Crystal make these points she made to Bree on every show, including her monologues. Hey, Katie, aren't you in California, a state that allows voters to go completely around? I don't think so. I don't think Katie's in California. Completely go around California government to place initiatives on the California ballot for voters to pass California laws and amend California Constitution. Their ballot initiatives, Sabby, the argument you're making about alternatives on the show they made towards CNN, MSDNC in the past about having progressives on their show. Thanks for the tip on Rockfin, Jean. Jean says, thank you. Thanks for this one as well, Roger. What this young lady, Alice, is saying right here makes my case as to why the government needs to be in charge of essential services, such as banking via public bank at state and local level, while postal at the national level. Publicly owned, operated broadband, be it municipal, state, or national level. Help to proliferate and expand co-ops like an agricultural co-op for weed, because businesses won't invest money because of no ROI, return on investment. One comes from a state where Dems have veto-proof majority in both chambers of the New York State Legislature, with a majority of co-sponsors for the New York Healthcare Act, yet she never covers it, and lives in a state that is number one in income inequality. Yet the other one, who I believe introduced as the Speaker of Oklahoma House, lives in a state that's in the top 10 most impoverished states. Also, goodbye, Rice, get to stepping. Okay. Just like I told Kit on his show when he played this, how honest would this convo be if we abolished all political parties, replace the corporations with worker co-ops? Then this would be a more solution-based conversation. That guy who makes the argument of doing things for business workers would benefit. Well, that would be true if they were worker co-ops, since the workers would be owners. Love to love you, baby. R.I.P. Oh, that was another one by Donna Summer. That was another one. Another one I really like is She Works Hard for the Money. She works hard for the money. So hard for it, honey. I like that one too. That was my jam. Listen, when you guys leave here, when you go to sleep tonight, you're going to have Donna Summer in your head. That's my goal. That's my goal. All right, guys. I think I pretty much covered everything. I do have that summit coming up. That is going to be next weekend. Guys, definitely check that out. Here is the poster for it. What happened to the poster? Oh, Twitter. Sometimes, you download one thing on one computer, then you go to another computer, and then you're like, what the heck? And then you can't find it again. Who sent me that DM? Okay, here we go. Doop-a-doop, doop, doop-a-doop-a-doop, boop, 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 boop. Okay, here it is. I want to show. Let's get ready for it, guys. Next weekend, get excited, get pumped. Sabby's ecstatic. Sabby's ready to do the damn thing. Next weekend is the Women's Summit, the first annual Women's Summit 2022 for Sabby Sabs podcast. There I am. You'll see other pictures next week. I'm going to show the promo video to you next week. Get excited and you'll find out who all the panelists are going to be. We're going to talk about women's health, women in the workplace, violence against women, and women activists. That is February 26th, February 27th, from 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have a lot of people lined up. I'm really excited about this. I don't think this has been done on the left before. If it has, I didn't know about it, but I've always wanted to bring women together and have this dialogue. I've been wanting to do this for about a year, and I'm just now getting around to it. It's just how it is. But yeah, I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of cool ideas that I want to bring onto the show as well. So I think you're going to see some different things. I think you're going to see, you see me do news and stuff a lot and interview people, but I do have more panel ideas in the back of my head, more summits that I want to do and bring onto the show as well. The Women's Summit, I'm super pumped and excited about, and I hope you guys are too. This is for everybody. This isn't just for women. I want men to watch this too, especially men, because I really want you to hear what women are going through in this country and how you can be an ally. So let's do the damn thing. I'm excited. It's the weekend. It's the weekend. All right, guys, I'm about to sign out. But before I go, toot, toot. Beep, beep. Toot, toot. Beep, beep. Bad girls. Talking about the sad girls. All right, guys. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.